Hello, everybody. Today we have the amazing Rachel Joy with us. Hi, Rachel. Thank you for being here.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Me too. As I was telling you, people want to get to know you in a really deep way. And you just started a podcast called Speak Louder. And
Mhm.
I'm going to be linking to it because everybody should go and listen to it. But before we start, can you tell us really briefly what you do and who you serve?
Ooh, this is such a heavy loaded question. I don't always know what to call myself because I'm like half business, half healing, a bit of both, all in one. So, what do? I guide women to own their power and step into their power so that they can create the life of their dreams. And that looks like a mixture of business coaching with the mind, body, spirit component, as well as certifying other aspiring coaches, healers, light workers, and service-based entrepreneurs in the powerful modalities of NLP, neurolinguistic programming,
Mhm.
EFT, emotional freedom technique, time techniques, clinical hypnotherapy, and life and success coaching.
I actually love that description because it's really encompassing of this of healing the entire body and mind, right? It's not just here's your business strategy, is you got to figure yourself out from the inside out. And
Yes.
after learning a lot about your story, I really want to start there. I want to start really early. One question that I love to ask is, before entrepreneurship was even in your sphere, right? Before you even knew that you wanted to do this, what did you think your life was going to be like? Can you take us back to before? Let's start talking about early childhood, because I know you have a very,
Yeah.
very rich childhood history that feeds into what you do now. So tell us what it was like growing up being you.
So I had many dreams growing up. I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be a singer. I danced competitively growing up. I wanted to be an actress. These are all things I dabbled in but gave up. I was always giving up on things. Lack of confidence was the reason why I gave up. And then there was also the other part of me, which was obviously by programming of like, go to school, get a good job, work hard type of mentality that was conditioning in my family, which was becoming a doctor. I always thought I'd become a doctor or a veterinarian. All those childhood, dreams or professions didn't pan out at all. Actually, one did. That's a lie. One did. So when I was little, I did have a dream of becoming an interior designer,
Mhm.
but I was told that in order to do interior design, you have to be good at math. And like, math is not my forte at all. Like, ask me to multiply something, I cannot do it. That's just not who I am. And
Yeah.
so I never even allowed myself to attempt that until after dropping out of university for psychology. I made a little detour and I decided to go into interior design, which was the same time I was taking my health coaching certification online. I was just kind of exploring my avenues to see where I end up. And I ended up as a coach in my last year of interior design. I was an honor roll student. I was doing really well. But something shifted. I ended up at a Tony Robbins event, and it just ended up taking me to coaching.
So let's pause and really zoom in, because in your story, and I'm going to put the links to your podcast where you get very, very raw. And in fact, the first place that I went to check out was your website. People should go to your about page and just read your entire story. And I will give people some background. So when you were growing up, your mother was an addict, alcoholic, and you saw them going to treatment when you were a tween, when you were 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
And I want to know what was happening in your life at that moment. What, from the perspective of a child, what did you think you were looking at? What were you experiencing at the
Oh
time?
man. So when my mom went away, she went into treatment for 60 days nearby in Toronto. And I think it
Did
was
you know
60.
why? Did you know
So
why
I
this was
did
happening?
when she went. When she went away, I honestly didn't even know what alcohol was until that point. Like, I was 11 or 12 years old, so I knew what alcohol was, but I didn't know that it could be a bad thing.
Mhm.
Because my parents kept it very, very hidden. Like, the way that her alcoholism showed up was by having family friends over every weekend and just having parties together. And the kids were in the basement playing downstairs. So we didn't get to see a lot of it. So it was only until I remember that like a day before going into treatment, I was sitting on my mom's lap and my mom had a drink beside her and she was sipping on it. And my dad was like yelling at her saying, you know, you're supposed to be 24 hours clean, 24 hours clean. Like, you can't do this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And then that's when she was like, Mommy, you know, Rachel, Mommy has a drinking problem and I need to be 24 hours sober before I can go into treatment. And I'm going into treatment on blank day. Up until then, I had no idea what addiction or alcoholism was, or that alcohol could be bad. So that transpired into a lot of feelings of feeling different because I didn't know any other friends who were experiencing the same thing. So I felt very alone. I felt very different, more so than I already did, just naturally. And it also actually caused a lot of separation anxiety. So suddenly at that time, I was like 11 or 12 years old. Suddenly I couldn't sleep out at my friends' houses. I would cry and cry and cry until my dad or somebody would come pick me up. Like, I just didn't feel safe anywhere but my home. And even then in my home, I didn't oftentimes feel safe because as that progressed for about 3 years, maybe 5, I don't remember, but definitely 3 years. So around the 3-year mark, I was still suffering with separation anxiety. And during that time, I was left with my cousins to come and take care of us, or I'd go sleep at my cousins. And same thing, just 3 years later, I'm now 15 years old and I'm embarrassed because I can't go sleep at my friend's house. Like, that's a normal thing for a teenager to be able to do. And I'm always finding excuses and reasons why I can't sleep over because I don't want to be put in a situation where I'm going to have to cry to go home. At school, you wouldn't have known. I was really good. I was like, so it's really interesting. I was that girl who had friends around her who was, you might consider popular, but I never considered myself to have friends or to be popular. So I was very, even though from the outside it looked fine, I was very, very self-conscious. I was very shy. I always felt like I didn't fit in. And so those stories and beliefs just, I was looking for all the evidence on why I didn't fit in rather than why I do fit in. Because evidently it would look like I was fitting in, but based off of my story and everything I was experiencing at home, it felt like I was completely different and that I didn't fit in.
At which point do you yourself take your first drink or try drugs for the first time?
Yeah, I was 15 years old. So fast forward, I lived with, childhood trauma. And then my teenage years, those were the small T's, which were compounding the big T's. Oh, just hit my mic. The big T's that happened when I was younger. So at that time, I was 13 years old. I knew what drugs were. In my mind at that time, drugs were bad. You don't do drugs. I'm never going to do drugs because drugs have ruined my family. And so the small T of that experience was that I, again, so compounded, again, felt very much alone, felt very different, felt like my family was broken and pulled apart again. That was a theme I had growing up, was that my family was just different and broken, because my mom went away and my brother went away. And then later on, coming to graduating high school, my parents did separate for some time. They are now happily married. They stayed together. And they're such an amazing example, in my opinion, of what real love looks like, because it is hard work, which some people think it shouldn't be. I think it's easier to divorce or break up a relationship than it is to stay together and actually work it out. So I admire them for that. But to answer your question, I started drinking when I was 15 years old. And then my first joint was 16 years old. And I actually think that's a little late. I know a lot of people who start around like 12 or 13, but I was living in so much fear of drugs being bad and what they would do to me that I held off for as long as I could. And the thing that made me say, okay, fine, I'm in, is I was so uncomfortable with who I was. I was lacking confidence. I was lacking safety and security. And I just wanted to feel like I belonged. And I was depressed and anxious, like so depressed from so many years of trauma and just feeling different, that I just wanted that to all go away. And that for some time did make it go away.
What do you think was happening during that year that made you wake up to this? Because status quo would have been just fine. You're
Yeah.
out there doing your jobs, you're smoking, you're drinking, you're doing all the things, that somebody your age would just normally do. You could have just continued on that path. What was the catalyst that made you say, no, 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 wait, I want something else?
There were a few different catalysts. So the one was that I was just tired. I was so tired of living the way I was living. Like I was so freaking depressed, and I would have used something more than just alcohol and weed. And I contemplated it a million times. But the thing that stopped me was fear of becoming addicted. So that wasn't an option for me. So it was like, well, if that's not an option, what is? Well, the opposite. Give it up. Do something different. The other catalyst was my grandmother was diagnosed during that time with cancer, and she was given only 3 months to live. And she thankfully lived over a year after that. But during the time they diagnosed her with 3 months. And my grandmother was one of my rocks during that time. So when there was so much chaos going on with my brother and my parents needing to cater to him, she understood what I was going through. Like she was able to hold the space for me to talk about it sometimes, because my mom had a brother very similar to my brother. So she's getting to live through it just through a different lens. So she was always there for me. And she was also a professional dancer. So we bonded over dance. She was just like an amazing bougie style woman. Like she would be at the Four Seasons bar every Saturday, just having drinks by herself, chatting to the bartenders. That's who she was. So I knew that I would not be able to live with myself if I was still using by the time she passed away, because I wouldn't be able to really be present with her. And I was scared that I wouldn't be able to get over her loss as well.
I'd love to honor the amazing contribution that your grandmother made in your life. What would you say to your grandmother right now if she was listening?
Oh my God. What would I say to my grandmother right now? I would say thank you so much for allowing us to have the lifestyle that we have today, and that she has the most beautiful, beautiful great grandson who I know she would just want to eat all up. Like my baby is like, there's a part of her in there for sure. Like he's just amazing. I might be biased, but I know just she has some type of role to play. And I know she's always with me as well. There's times where I'm like, oh, that's my bubby. I see her. So I see you, bubby.
And we'll get to talk about your beautiful son, Nate, in a moment. So don't worry, we are going to get there. So now you have this conversation with your mother. Can you tell us what happened in that conversation and what happened after?
So my mom and I were getting in yet again another fight. My mom was sober. She knew I wasn't. And so obviously as a parent, she's doing what she thinks is best, which is to say drugs are bad. You got to stop doing that, get your life together type of thing. And I was just tired of having that argument. I was so done. And so I wrote her a letter explaining. I was like, what's going on? Like I would lie to her, say, Mom, you don't know what's going on. Like I'm not doing that. Like I would push it off as much as I could. But she knew what was going on. She's a mom. Of course she knows what's going on. So I wrote her a letter because I was too scared to have the conversation. And I said, you're right. This is what's going on. And I don't want to live like this anymore. So obviously the letter led to a real in-person conversation. And I remember in that conversation, I just said to her, she's like, why this letter? Why now? Kind of thing. And I said, I know I have greatness within me. I want to be great. I just don't know how to be great. And that was something that was truly true. Like I grew up, even as a young kid, when I was choosing all those various careers, knowing that there was something more for me. Like throughout my entire depression, there were times when I contemplated on taking my life, but I never did because I knew there was a reason why I was here. I couldn't figure it out. So I said those words, and then I think within like a week, I was on a plane to Salt Lake City for treatment.
So after treatment, you go back to school, you think to yourself, well, interior design, right? Like you were saying in the beginning, interior design, that seems to be like the thing. Can you tell us just what the transition was between you thinking, okay, I'm going to be an interior designer, to wait a minute, this is not it. I would like to do coaching. And I know there's a Tony Robbins influence in there
Yes.
somewhere. So tell me what happened in that transition from interior design to coaching.
So I was in my graduating year of interior design. Honor roll student, absolutely loved it. Had started my own interior decorating business while I was in student. That way, when I graduate, I can just raise my prices and already have everything booming. Like I always had that entrepreneur mind. So I was already building that up because I totally thought that's where I was going to go. And then I was following Crystal Fuentes, the ladies coach. She's somebody who I still love and adore today. And she was doing a giveaway for a free ticket. And for a free ticket to UPW, Unleash the Power Within. I had no clue who Tony Robbins was other than the Netflix video. Like I didn't know he was that big of a coach, or an influence even. And I just applied because I was like, there's no way that I can be, I think I was around 24 or 25 at the time, but there's no way I can be this young with having my life figured out this much and be this happy. Like either I'm going to die early and this is my peak, or there's more. Like again, that sense and craving for more, because I had an amazing relationship. We're about to get married. I'm about to graduate. I have my business. Like I had everything and I was happy, like truly happy. So I was like, there's got to be more than just this. So I applied and I won. I didn't even know what UPW was. I was just like, okay, well, if it's meant for me, it's meant for me. I won. I went to UPW, and when I was there, I saw Tony intervening on a woman who had experienced sexual abuse just as I had. And so I felt really connected to her story. And I was just crying tears of gratitude because, like, when you're in the victim mode, when you're stuck in the story, it's painful. And so I felt her pain. And then to watch her go from that pain all the way to like freedom and victory through that intervention process just made me so happy. Because as I was watching that process unravel, I was already cheering for her. Like I knew that was available to her because I had already experienced it. And so it was in that moment where it's like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to be an interior designer. I need to go back to what I was doing originally, which was coaching. By that time, I had my health coaching certification, wasn't doing anything with it. I didn't have the confidence to build an online business at the time. So that was really the start. I came home, changed my Instagram bio to coach. I honestly wasn't doing anything with it other than just making inspiring posts. So nothing came of it until December of that year. So that was like, I don't know, that was March or April. March. It was March. The very first UPW I went to was March in LA. Then December, we went to Date with Destiny for our honeymoon. And that was when I was like, okay, I'm still not stepping up. I'm still in fear. I need to take massive action. So that's when everything really started, was December.
December 2019?
December, hold on, give me a second. Let me do the math. 2018.
December 2018?
2017. 2017. So December 2017, started my business in the beginning of 2018.
All right. So this is where we're going to talk about all of the fun stuff that the online coaches are going to be geeking over, which is I would love for you to tell us the story of your mighty successful coaching business from the beginning, like it's a baby. Like, so tell us,
like this.
Tell us what happened. And we want, these are the things we want to hear about.
Okay.
Your investments, right? Like coaching programs or products and things that you were trying, things that were pivotal points that you're like, things just clicked after that. And, this is what I did. We would love to hear about any launching stories that were either really bad flops or really high highs. So
I've got it all.
tell us the story of your success from that moment, from that December 2017.
Okay. So December, I came home, hired my very first coach. It was around a $15,000 Canadian investment, more like 12 or 13K US. I had no clients at the time. no job. I was fired from my corporate job like a month before attending Date with Destiny. And so no job, no clients, only $2,000 in my bank account, but I knew that this was for me. So I was like, this is what I got to do. Like, worst case scenario, I'm $15,000 in debt. I'm sure I can make a comeback from that somehow. So made that investment, started my business, started it with the typical building an online course, putting out my offers, doing a 3-day challenge, and nothing really was sticking. It felt slow. It definitely felt slow. But I kept showing up. And I kept showing up and I kept showing up. And I signed my first client around 3 months, month 3. I had a few one-on-one clients continue. Like once I got one, it kind of started to pour in because it's like that confidence comes in.
How much were, if you don't mind sharing, how much were you charging for your services?
Great question.
First
So
time.
my very first client, I charged $1,111 US dollars, 1,111. And I just continued to increase every single time because I knew I was undercharging, but I didn't have the confidence to sell higher packages. So I went from 1,111 to 2,200 to 3,300 to 4,400 to 5,500. I stayed at 5,500 for a while until I felt qualified, or the value I was providing really resonated with what I wanted to ask. And now I don't even do one-on-one coaching unless it's a $10,000 package or more. It depends on what we're doing. I do one-on-one coaching in a very unique way now, but back then I stayed at 5,500 for a while. So
what was your back in the 55 stage? What were you doing at the time, to grow your audience? Like, what was your focus to continue to grow this thing?
I did tons of live videos, almost every day, I think.
In your personal Facebook or like Instagram, or like what were you doing live streaming?
Both. I was doing on my personal Facebook and then copying that over into my Facebook group and my business page, and then also live on Instagram. I was also working with a social media agency to get me to 10K followers. This was not a bot process. It was like they actually get you targeted followers. It's all manually done. So it was quite expensive. But I wanted that because I was one of those believers that if you don't have 10K followers, you don't have the swipe up function, meaning you can't monetize. Mm-hmm. That is so far from the truth. I thought once I got 10K followers, they just come pouring in. It didn't make a difference. Yeah. I'm glad I have it because it's an additional function, but it didn't make a difference. So if you're listening thinking you need followers, no, you just need to have a good quality connection and relationship with your audience.
Can I just say, just to double down on that, I made it to my first 6 figures without ever cracking 1,000 followers in any of my accounts.
Yeah, there you go. And I have so many clients who have done that as well. But for some reason, I just like my coach I hired had more than 10K, and she would tell me that. But I'm like, I didn't believe it. Because I'm like, yeah, well, it's easy for you to say you have 14,000 followers. So I didn't believe it from her. So I had to learn the hard way, but hey, it's not actually the hard way because I did get a return on my investment. Some of those people did turn into clients.
Right.
I just don't think it was probably the smartest investment. So was doing all the things, showing up consistently, putting content out there, hit my first 10K month in 6 months, started kind of taking an egotistical approach and talking all about success and money like you see in the online space. And my business started to thrive even more until it wasn't thriving anymore because that just wasn't aligned for me. Like that's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to talk about money and brag about money. I'm here to help women step into their power. And as a byproduct, you receive money. And so I was forgetting about that part because I was just getting wrapped up into it all. And so later that year, I created a mastermind, a high ticket level mastermind. It was around 20K. I don't even remember exactly, but $20,000. And I was still learning a lot about being unattached to the outcome and money goals and why you ask or why you want to receive a certain money goal, stuff like that. And I was totally accepting the wrong people into the program. Like I was just making customized payment plans, doing smaller deposits. Like I was letting people put down a $500 deposit on a $20,000 program. That doesn't make any sense. That's not a right, smart business move.
Can you pause right there, because I think that's such an important point, that people say, well, if I lower my prices, then it makes it possible for more people to come in. And what I tell them is, actually, your price determines the kind of people that come in. It's not like you are pricing it for the same kind of person. Depending on your price, you will reach different people. So what was it like? Tell us a little bit more of that pain of, underpricing too many payment plans and the quality of people that you get in. How did you realize that this is not my people?
What happened was it basically crumbled and burned right in front of me. And how it crumbled and burned was I was on a very luxurious, amazing, still the best vacation I've ever been on with my husband to Australia and New Zealand. We were living it up. We took a private charter to Whitsundays Islands, like doing all the things, and it was amazing. But I was so stuck in my work. Like on our cruise, we went on a New Zealand cruise, and my husband's watching dolphins jumping up right beside our boat and whales, and I'm just like in my phone dealing with complaints from clients who are saying that they can't pay their bills and they have to back out of their contract, which is not a place you want to be, especially not on vacation. If you're on vacation, you want to be able to turn off, which I now have a team and more mindset practices behind me if that ever happens, which I don't even get payment failures anymore, thank God. Because of that, like you mentioned, you increase your rates and you increase your worth and you attract a certain client. But at that time, I was having payment failures, I was having contract disputes, and I actually decided to pull the plug on the program. I was like, I can't, this is too much effort, too much pain, and I can't move forward with this much uncertainty if the other remaining people are going to pay or not, because I know that they're not fully at that level of commitment either. Yeah. So I pulled the plug. I took a month or two to kind of break it all down, to build it all back up from a place of alignment, because I saw my part in this. Like, it wasn't just, why is this happening to me? This is happening to me because of how I'm showing up and my messaging. So let's reapproach my messaging. Let's actually walk the walk, not just talk the talk, and do the NLP work on me. I was certified as an NLP practitioner, but I wasn't even doing the work with my clients because I wasn't confident in actually practicing the techniques. Okay, where's that going to get you? So I started, I took like a month off. I was still showing up online, but I wasn't selling anything. And I was behind the scenes. I was really going deep into myself and using my tools and practices in NLP that I had to release those limiting beliefs around my money mindset, what I'm worth, what people can pay, that it can be easy, what my brand messaging is, that I can lead with authenticity and transformation and still have success. Like, money doesn't have to be the driving factor, because there's a lot of that in the social media world. And I was getting caught up in that. And I was like, well, if I'm not selling money, what am I selling that's going to get people to come in? I felt like if I wasn't doing that, then people weren't going to sign with me. So really just busting down all those limiting beliefs and programming. And in that time, naturally, as I was doing that work on myself, people were starting to come my way. Like, I didn't have to sell myself. They were suddenly saying, hey, Rachel, how can I work with you? And so from there, I just started skyrocketing and growing and growing and growing. During that time when I was kind of sitting, I did have the vision of Transcend Academy, which is my coaching certification. I was like kind of looking not just at myself, but at the industry. I was like, what needs to change? Like, what's going on here? So I created this idea. I was like, wouldn't it be great if I could create something where people are getting coached, they're getting qualified, because there needs to be qualified coaches out there. They need to know how to do the work, that they can get the business support they need in order to grow their business. And they can have the immersion and transformations that I was so lucky to have. Like, everywhere, the biggest transformations happened in Tony Robbins, as you know, treatment, all these immersive experiences. So I was like, how can I create this container? And I kind of held the vision on that. I knew it would happen one day, but I didn't know like how it would happen and stuff like that. So I put it on the back burner, and then made more investments. I was in a mastermind. So you said you wanted to know investments. I was in a mastermind, which was more of like a healing retreat mastermind. It was business marketed, but truth be told, there was no business support at all. So I was like, okay, well, I need to learn business somewhere. So I joined Chris and Lori Harder's mastermind, Fast Foundations mastermind at the time. And that gave me a strong foundation on online marketing. I knew a lot of the stuff already, but it was a great scrub up. When you join a mastermind, you're also joining for connections.
Right.
I would say that's the most valuable part. It's not what you learn from the coaches, it's the connections and the networking. So I joined that, and I don't even know where. I started hosting events with one of the girls, one of my great friends who I met in that program. We started hosting events. And then from there, I just brought Transcend Academy to life. And that's been my thing ever since.
I love it. And actually, can you describe for us what are your current offers? People are listening. They're like, I need to work with Rachel. What are the ways for people to work with you right now?
So more than what are the ways to work with me, I want you to look at this as trial and error. I have so many programs, so many offers. It took a lot of time for me to figure out what was my thing. So ways that you can work with me now, I've now narrowed it down. It used to be you could work with me in every way possible. Now you can't. So we have Bliss Biz Babe Live, which is a 2-day event on online marketing for female entrepreneurs. We have Transcend Academy, which is a immersive coaching certification. Sorry, I should correct that. We've just updated the curriculum. It's now a trauma-informed immersive coaching certification, and it's board recognized, which is super fun. And then one-on-one coaching in the form of a breakthrough day. The breakthrough day can be either a 1-day or a 2-day experience. The 1 day is all subconscious programming, limiting beliefs, going through all of that stuff so that you can step into your more empowered identity. And then day 2, if you do the day 2, the 2-day one is all around business strategy, structure, clarifying your offers, looking at your copy, looking at your landing pages, looking at your systems, and implementing what needs to be implemented so that you can scale easily and sustainably.
And what is that one called?
The Breakthrough Day.
Breakthrough Day. All
Yeah.
right. How has the pandemic impacted your ability to hold your live events and stuff like that?
I know, right? So, okay, I was really bummed around this time last year when it was announced, because I was just about to host my first Transcend Academy immersion, which obviously went virtual. And I'll be honest, we did such a fantastic job that I'm even contemplating on whether Transcend Academy should still be in person or not. At the practitioner level, that is, master practitioner has to be in person based off of how we've curated it. But the practitioner level, there's like, apart from us being in person, having it be so fun together, there's almost like no reason why it can't be done virtually. So something I'm playing with. We'll see on that one. Bliss Biz Babe, I've postponed until this year. I'm now doing it virtual again, just because in Canada, it's very hard to get in and out of the country right now. Like you guys probably wouldn't, unless you're Canadian, I don't think you're able to get in.
I can't even leave my house.
So I've been doing everything virtually, but I am really excited to be able to be in person again, because I truthfully believe that there's nothing like the power of in-person events. I'm sure you can understand that, having gone to Tony Robbins in the past.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what do you think is coming up next for you? What is your next big mountain?
Oh, 2 things are coming up. So what's next for me is I'm in a really good place with Rachel Joy. There's really no next steps for Rachel Joy. We're on a trajectory right now where we're just about to kick off the first master practitioner level. And then as soon as that rolls out, we'll be kicking off the trainers training, so that if you want to create your own certification, we'll teach you how to do that and how it can become board recognized as well. I'm really big on ethics, morals, and values in the coaching industry. So it's important to me that it's board recognized. So that's like Rachel Joy. As of right now, that's my vision. I don't see anything else. But my husband and I do have a vision to start another business. So we are currently working behind the scenes on an athletic line with like some type of, I don't want to spill the beans too much because we're still working it out, but some type of lifestyle component will be involved in there as well.
Nice. So can you tell us, what is the biggest misconception that people have of you as a successful businesswoman?
So two things are coming up. I've been told a lot of the times that I can be intimidating.
How is that possible?
I'm like the most nicest, non-judgmental person ever. Like my friends in treatment were, in jail for dealing heroin, and I don't judge them. I love them. I don't think any less of them. So I wouldn't go with intimidating, but I think that's just because my success kind of threatens them and they find themselves on the comparison reel. The other thing was, what was the biggest misconception is that I think it's so often, again, and related to comparison, people look at you and they're like, oh, well, easy for her. She's got this. Easy for that. She's got that. But now, after listening to my whole story, well, it wasn't so easy. It wasn't easy for a long time. And even now, I'm still going through stuff and always learning and growing. Right now, my life is an easier part of my life, but it hasn't always been easy. That's for sure.
Yeah. And before I get to the last question, actually, I said that we would come back to Nate and we ran out of time. Can you just tell us something amazing about your son?
My son is a catalyst for more healing. He actually, I had quite a traumatic birth experience with him. I love him to death, but it was not what I expected at all.
Yeah.
And so he reignited a lot of childhood trauma for me, like reactivated it. So I thought I had done all the healing. I thought I was fixed. You're never fixed. There's just times in your life where it's going to come up. So I'm in that next layer. Over the past year, I've been in the next layer of that healing again. So I love him to death, and he's such a gift because it's not fun to do the healing, but you learn so much about yourself, and it takes you to so many more beautiful places when you do commit to that inner work. So his name is Nate Nathaniel. It means God's gift. I did not know he was going to be a gift in that sense. He's a gift in many ways, but that's one of the ways he's definitely a gift, is allowing me to be a better mother and a better human being all around by being a catalyst for the inner work.
I think he's going to grow up to be an amazing human being, having you and your husband Dan as like role models and examples. So there's no doubt in my mind he's a very, very lucky kid, and I know that you are going to just be just fine. I really believe that. So why don't you share with us, if everybody who's listening right now had to do what you're about to tell them to do, and they have to do it in the next 24 hours, what would that thing be?
I'm like, oh, they might hate me for this. This is going to look different for every single person. That one thing that's on your mind right now that you are like, should I, shouldn't I, maybe I should take that step. Whatever that thing on your mind is that you're feeling the fear around, or you're not sure if it's for you. If it's in your mind, it's for you. So my challenge for you is to just go and do that. Go commit in the next 24 hours to signing up for that coach, purchasing that program. And maybe it's to sell your house and chase that dream of living the van life. I don't know. I see a lot of people doing that lately. Not my thing, but whatever that dream or that thing is that you're being called to, just go answer the call.
I love it. Rachel Joy, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us.
Thank you so much for having me.